What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Great League Remix Cup featuring some of the fan favourites for this channel, including Salazzle that many people asked for me to bring back recently, as well as both Scraggy and XL Scraggy, which were pretty much mascots for the channel back when I was doing my Team Go Rocket challenges. Of course, both Scraggy and Scrafty gained access to Upper Hand this season, which is a very good move, being a clone in terms of damage and energy of Aqua Jet, Sludge, and Psyshock, which all got big buffs this season, but it also has the added effect of having a 30% chance to debuff the opponent's defense. Now, Pangoro shares the exact same dual typing as the backline, and it is fairly common in this meta, so the typing probably isn't going to go completely crazy and catch your opponents off guard. However, it is still a pretty good core breaker, at least in the early meta, and actually went negative in this first set, but I then pulled it back and went on a 17-3 run in my next 4 sets, including a 12-game win streak. So once I had the team figured out, it actually really worked out for me. Anyways, this was a very viable team. Of course, you could just use Pangoro instead of the Scraggy and you probably would have an easier time, but either way, still a very strong team. Now, before we get into the question of the day, I want to announce this week's subscriber challenge is now live, and you can see a very basic outline of what this challenge requires on the screen now, but you should absolutely check out the submission form and find out the exact details for this challenge, as there are lots of different ways in which you can earn points, and it's also a little bit complicated, so do be very careful with that. I also feel like this is the type of challenge where you don't actually have to actively work towards it. It will just naturally happen when you're battling in the Go Battle League. Of course, you're going to face hard counters to your team every now and then, so maybe we'll see more submissions than usual for this challenge. You can submit a battle in either the Great League or the Great League Remix Cup, and you can submit as many times as you like. So if you want to submit early, but then you get a higher scoring battle later on, I will just take the highest scoring battle that you submit. Also importantly, this week I've introduced an ELO-based points multiplier, which should hopefully encourage trainers at a higher ELO to take part in these challenges as well. But if you are a lower ELO trainer, please don't be discouraged, as the multiplier is only a small one and the majority of the entries will still be a low ELO. Now again, if you want to find out more about this multiplier, you can find out in the submission form, and I definitely recommend checking that out before you do attempt the challenge at all. And if you have any questions about the challenge, or if you don't think any of the changes are fair, or if you think you've got other ideas in which I can improve these challenges, please share your opinion in the dedicated channel on my Discord server, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you've got and give my reasoning to any of the changes that I've made. For that, there will be a link in the pinned comment along with the submissions form for this challenge, and as always, there is a link in the description of every single video for both the Discord and the submission form, so please do check that out before you do enter the competition. But anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the best core breaker for the early Great League Remix Cup meta? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. I'm sending into the first battle, leading Salazzle into Macargo. So this is actually the very first battle I did with this team, and we're off to an absolutely awful start right now as we lead into Macargo. We then say swap into Scraggy, met with a Whimsicott. They completely wall everything I can possibly throw, even Thunder Punch as well. So I go for the upper hand, and actually, if I was able to manage to get a debuff with that first upper hand, I might have grabbed a shield here, as that probably would have got the KO. So that is very unfortunate, but I've put them into range where we can come in and just a single Incinerate from Salazzle will get the KO. They go for Seed Bomb there, that's double resisted everything they can throw, apart from Hurricane, which they're probably not on, would have been double resisted, and now their final Pokemon is going to be a Spiritomb, so suddenly things are looking a lot better for me. I go straight for Foul Play here, and I realize this can only be a resisted charge move. However, if I no-shield this, I might put myself into range where Macargo can come in and then just go for a full Incinerate farm down. So I'm actually going to double shield here, expecting the opponent once again to go for the Rock Tomb, and they do exactly that. But now we can go for the upper hand here, and upper hand is going to grab a shield, and it drops the defense, and this is just going to be another Rock Tomb. So at this point, of course, Rock Tomb going to get me fairly low, but I swap out of that matchup. We come back in with Salazzle. I farm up to back-to-back Poison Fangs. At this point, I've put them into range where Poison Fang will get the KO. The opponent uses their final shield, but they're in range where I can now just come in and counter farm them down. The opponent fires off the Rock Tomb. They're going to swap back into Spiritomb, but Scrafty was one away from the Foul Play. Foul Play gets the KO. 2 more counters, takes out Macargo, and despite the fact that we led into an awful Pokemon for Salazzle and Scraggy was completely hard countered in the say swap, I'm able to get the upper hand in that battle and take that game. So, GG top on there into next battle. See a Dusclops in the lead. The opponent's going to swap out there into a Pelipper, and do they know about the Thunder Punch coverage? No, it nearly one-shots them. Unfortunately, just barely doesn't quite get the one-shot there. So the opponent does reach a last-second weather ball, which doesn't do too much damage. But unfortunately, it does mean that Scraggy probably won't be able to tank a charge move at this point. But either way, I'm happy I've flip switch advantage. But they actually go for a Shadow Punch bait there. Scraggy able to hang on. And they don't know what my other charge move is. So they end up shielding, maybe expecting a foul play before swapping into a Dust Noir. So interesting ABA style team here with both Dusclops and Dust Noir. So now I'm going to come in with Salazzle, as of course they are going to have, well, they're going to resist the counter damage from my Scrafty. I'm now full sending the Dragon Pulse right off the bat. Dragon Pulse is going to be unfortunately shielded by the opponent, but at this point I think I want the Incinerate damage, so I'm just going to shield here. Even if the opponent does swap back into their Dusclops and they snipe me, I should still be in an okay position here. The opponent fires off the Shadow Punch once again. I don't know what their other charge move is. I'm going to assume some sort of Elemental Punch, but either way, got no shields remaining. They actually just go for Shadow Punch once again, so maybe they're on Shadow Punch and Poltergeist, in which case I definitely don't recommend a full Ghost moveset there. As you can see, of course, up against a Dark type, you are just completely walled, but I'm going to farm up to back-to-back charge moves, and this game should be well and truly wrapped up here. We get to back-to-back foul plays. First foul play, surely going to be enough damage to get the KO here, and a second foul play. I mean, honestly, I probably could have BM'd with an upper hand, but either way, foul play gets the KO there up against the Dust Noir, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We see Dunsparce in the lead, so awful lead matchup for me. Once again, get a safe swap into my Scraggy. The opponent is going to stay in initially before eventually swapping into another Fairy type. However, they do only take neutral damage from the Fighting type damage here, so we're going to go for the upper hand, and it drops their defense there. And at this point, the opponent is going to fire off a charge move. Now, I'm going to shield the first move here. The opponent does just bait with a Weather Ball, which is fine with me, but I throw on CMP. Scraggy winning CMP, and we've debuffed their defense, so we actually grab a shield back from the opponent. So at this point, this is just going to be a Weather Ball as well. Weather Ball, of course, is only going to be neutral, and Scraggy able to hang in there, reach another upper hand, and Scraggy might just flip switch advantage up against a Fairy type, and it does. That is insane work from the Scraggy. They come in with a Skeleturge. So at this point, I'm going to come in with my Salazzle here, and what I'm expecting is the opponent to farm up to the Shadow Ball, and then eventually, once I use my final shield here, they will just swap and snipe with the Dunsparce. So we swap out straight away. We're able to catch a, well, neutral charge move if they go for the drill run, which they do, and now we're in a really good position here. Of course, Scrafty not able to generate energy as fast as it used to be able to, but either way, still a pretty dominant position. I'm going to overfarm here, throw just before they do reach that next charge move. I don't actually know who wins CMP in this matchup, but either way, up hand gets the KO there. They come back in with the Skeleturge. I'm going to make sure I fire off the foul play before they can throw any sort of charge move, but then I make a huge mistake here. I thought I left with a Dragon Pulse loaded, and such a rookie mistake. Shadow Ball gets the one shot there. They can now just incinerate, farm me down. And despite all that hard work there, I do end up losing that game just because I forgot how much energy the Salazzle had. But GG's to the opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Toxapex in the lead. So honestly, not that bad. I am, of course, resisting the Poison Jab damage. I outpace them to the Dragon Pulse. I then swap into my Scraggy, and the opponent fires off the Brine straight away, which is kind of strange to me. Of course, if they were seeing the Salazzle staying in, I would have got a full Incinerate in for free, but either way, they come in with the Primeape. They're going to go for a Rage Fist bait there, which honestly, not really a bait, because now they can just go for a Karate Chop farm down, and they're also going to shield the upper hand, which is definitely not ideal for us. That gives the opponent the upper hand, because now they've still got quite a lot of health here for me to farm them down with my Salazzle. They're also already boosted, and they can reach another charge move before I can Incinerate, farm them down. And actually, even if I commit to the farm down now, I still wouldn't quite get it. But the opponent does swap back into their Toxapex, so I full send the Dragon Pulse here. Dragon Pulse grabs the final shield from the opponent, and again, able to catch a charge onto my Scraggy, which is very nice. The opponent fires off the Brine straight away. At this point, I'm going to overfarm as much as I possibly can. Fire off the Foul Play on the CMP tie. Foul Play from this range gets the KO up against the Toxapex. They come back in with the Primeape, but they're only going to throw another resisted Rage Fist. So I'm able to tank that, and they've got a Sucker Punch for it in the back. Literally best case scenario for me, as of course, I'm double resisting the Sucker Punch damage. We can now come in with the Salazzle, go straight for Poison Fang, just barely outpacing them to the move, and we can Incinerate, farm down the Primeape, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG top on their into next battle. We see Pangoro in the lead. So, of course, this is a okay matchup for me. I don't mind seeing it here. Of course, Scraggy going to do okay, but I don't want to shield this first charge move. So, no shield. It's actually a close combat. Then I realized the opponent probably going to try and snipe me with something. So, I just randomly swap into my Scraggy. It kind of works out for me. However, of course, we've only got resisted charge moves to throw, and they do actually no shield the upper hand there. I also thought they'd throw straight away since they are probably going to be on Rock Tomb, which they do throw here. So, I did throw on alignment, which is definitely not ideal as it does allow them to reach another charge move before I get to the upper hand, but it is just another Rock Tomb which I'm able to tank there, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent's going to come back in with their Pangoro, so I go straight for the upper hand, and then I will actually just swap straight away into my Scraggy here with debuff the defense, but they do have the energy for another close combat. So I shield, but it's actually a Night/bait. I don't even understand why they baited there, and that's really frustrating to me because, of course, if I no-shielded that, I'd be in a great position, but now I have to let the Dynamic Punch go through. It does huge damage. We do hang on there, as I do actually have quite a good IV Scraggy, but they're able to Sidewave, farm me down, and that's absolutely game over here. I can come in with a Salazzle. I do have a Poison Fang loaded. However, they can just use their final shield. They can Sidewave, farm me down, Sidewave, farm down the Scraggy, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Altaria in the lead. So, of course, not really ideal for me. I'm just going to stay in, and I think I will just full send a Dragon Pulse here. The opponent is going to, unfortunately, respect the damage, and I will make it to another Poison Fang. But if they do know the counts there, they should just let this move go through. The opponent actually double shields the Altaria. So at this point, I'm going to swap out into my Scraggy. You could argue maybe I could have just let the Salazzle go down at that point. I was only at like 1 HP anyways. But the opponent then comes in with a second flying type, Skarmory, but I do have Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch hits for super effective damage. I actually didn't bother checking this before, but I don't know if Upper Hand is such a good move that it actually does more damage in neutral situations than a super effective Thunder Punch. Probably not the case, so I went for the Thunder Punch anyways. But either way, we come in with the Scraggy. We get the counter farm down. They come back in with the Altaria. I did think about trying to make a catch there, but it is very risky with my Salazzle, so instead, I'm going to use my shield there. They come in with a Blossom. I'm expecting the opponent to farm up to a Dazzling Gleam, so go for the Upper Hand. Upper Hand does big damage. It does not drop the defense, and actually they just go straight for a Leaf Blade. So Leaf Blade does quite a lot of damage. It gets me very low, but I can swap into Salazzle, catch the next Leaf Blade here, and of course Leaf Blade, even though it's double resisted, gets the KO. Scraggy comes back in, we get the farm down, and we leave with back-to-back foul plays loaded. Absolutely huge for me. Foul play number 1 gets Altaria low, and a second foul play will certainly be enough damage to take out the Altaria, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle, Salazzle into Primeape. So this is an okay matchup, definitely where we want to see it with this team. We are going to stay in, and the opponent is going to swap and catch the Poison Fang, swapping out 1 turn before I reach the Poison Fang, so getting a full gust in for free. But we can come in with the Scraggy, or sorry, the Scraggy. I'm going to get these two mixed up all the time in this video, but either way, we go for the upper hand straight away, and the opponent does just fully sacrifice the Pidgeot. And this one, of course, the Primeape does have a lot of energy, so I'm just going to no-shield here, force the opponent to either go for the close combat or go for back-to-back Rage Fist, and even then I should still live another Rage Fist. So of course I'm gonna no shield. They actually go for Ice Punch here, which is very interesting. I come in with Salazzle. They try to snipe with the Mud Slap, and that did huge damage from the Shadow Golok. But now we can come in with the Scraggy, use my first shield as they full send the Dynamic Punch, go for the Feint Attack farm down, and at this point I think I'm actually going to use my shield here because I can just get off a few more Feint Attacks up against this Primeape. Even though it's resisted, it gets the farm down. The opponent ends up losing that game with 2 shields still in play, and we're able to take it. But GG's to that opponent there. Into the next battle, we see a Shadow Alola Marowak. I swap, and the opponent, incredibly brave swap there, just anticipating I would swap out straight away. So they literally don't even care what we're coming in with. They're just bringing a Bomber Snow in because, of course, it's not going to do very well up against the Salazzle, and that is actually a crazy swap from the opponent. And here, I make a big mistake as well. I went for the upper hand really late because I assumed it would KO, but actually, it doesn't quite get the KO, and if I threw it earlier, you can see I dropped their defense, so if I threw it earlier, I probably could have farmed them down and won that matchup, but as a result, I end up going down and losing switch advantage up against an Abomasnow. I didn't want to use a shield there either, so at this point they come in with a Lantern. I'm still feeling pretty confident about this matchup because I was assuming the Marowak was going to be on Hex, which did get buffed this season, but actually it turns out Fire Spin is the way to go for this meta, and as a result, it means that unfortunately Scraggy is going to take quite a lot of damage from these Fire Spins, whilst they are, of course, double resisting the counter damage, so they can just safely shield or double shield if they need to, and it's going to be game over. There's not a lot we can really do here. I could have gone for the foul play straight away. I think I'd probably lose CMP, but I actually don't know if that is the case. But either way, it doesn't really matter. They perfectly overfarm. I'm going to come in with the Salazzle. I need to reach back-to-back charge loops, but not only that, I need to reach a Poison Fang and a Dragon Pulse to get the win, and I'm not able to do so. They reach another Bone Club. Bone Club easily takes out Salazzle. It's double super effective, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG to up on there into the next battle. We see Corsola in the lead, so I'm going to say swap into my Scraggy, and we're met with a Grumpig, and this is fine with me, of course. I don't have access to foul play. However, I can still win this matchup, at least in the 2-shield scenario, very comfortably, as the feint attacks will be able to fully farm them down. I'm going to throw off Thunder Punch here. Thunder Punch is actually no shielded by the opponent. Looks like the opponent is happy to take a shield advantage here. I go for Thunder Punch number 2, and they do just let it go down before coming in with a Pangoro. So at this point, I am full sending the upper hand. Upper hand is going to be shielded by the opponent, and at this point I definitely can't allow them to just fully farm me down, so I come in with the Salazzle, force the opponent to expend some of the energy as they go for a Night Slash. They then come back in with the Corsola, and I'm going straight for a Dragon Pulse here. Dragon Pulse is going to be no shielded by the opponent. It does respectable damage, and now I'm just going to come back in with the Scraggy, force the opponent to throw their energy. Otherwise I can just go for a full feint attack, farm down. The opponent fires off the Nightshade. Now we can come in with Scraggy and go for a very aggressive double resisted counter farm down. We resist everything they can possibly throw here. I'm expecting the opponent will be able to swap out eventually into Pangoro, and I have to just call a bait here. The opponent does go for the Night Slash bait. That is double resisted. A huge call for me. Now at this point, I definitely just safely shield this up. The opponent full sends the close combat, but it's too little too late. And at this point, I've got the opportunity to go for the upper hand BM here. So I'm going to do exactly that. Upper hand grabs the final shield. We can now go for a second upper hand. This is double resisted, but I've debuffed the defense. It gets the KO up against the Corsola, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to up on that into the next battle. We see a Tinkaton in the lead, so a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to say swap into a Gelatin, and I've got the perfect response in my Scraggy here, of course. We don't have foul play, but Thunder Punch still going to hit for super effective damage. They fire off a Surf. Surf actually does quite a lot of damage there, and if they do reach a second Surf, then it will get me very low. However, if they let the Thunder Punch go through, which they do, I will definitely let the move go through, but they actually don't even throw a move at all, which is maybe smart on the opponent's side, because now they can come in with a Tinkaton, go for the Fairy Wind farm down, and if they have access to Bulldoze, this is where things get a little bit tricky for me. But we come in with Salazzle. I'm definitely going to shield, respect the damage, and they're actually on Heavy Slam, so clearly not on Bulldoze, and as a result, that's going to be a very comfortable win for me. We can just come in, completely hard counter them, come in with a Scrafty, double resist these sucker punches. They can boost up their attack. It doesn't matter. Look at the fast speed pressure from that far. It's basically doing no damage whatsoever. I think, honestly, Scrafty might be gaining HP here, but either way, we get the full farm down. We come out with back-to-back upper hands. The first one, honestly, the opponent probably just lets us go through. They do exactly that, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there. Honestly, not a lot they could have done, although if they did have access to Bulldoze, maybe it could have been a little bit dicey for me. But either way, into the next battle, another great lead. They say swap into a Shadow Quagsire, and I'm going to respond with my Scrafty. The opponent fires off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb does not that much damage, actually, so we can just go straight for the upper hand here. Upper hand is going to be no shielded by the Quagsire, and it drops the defense. So at this point, I should still live a Mud Bomb from this range, so I'm going to no shield. Mud Bomb does get us very low, but we do get the farm down. Now at this point we come in with the Salazzle here, and I don't want to throw a charge move. I'm waiting for the opponent to throw, but they actually wait a long time there, so I'm actually just going to go straight for a Dragon Pulse here. Poison Fang would not get the KO from that range, and as a result they've got a Primeape in the back. I should be looking good here. However, maybe I should have just committed to a full Incinerate farm down, use the shield, and come out with 100 energy. But either way, we are going to shield up the Rage Fist. I'm now going to go for one Incinerate, fire off the Poison Fang here, and then I will swap out of this matchup. I'm not confident that I can live the Karate Chop damage there, but now we come in with the Scraggy, and the opponent just concedes the match there. So, GG's on there. Into next battle, we can see a Shadow Dragonite in the lead. So, definitely not ideal for me. Going to stay in with Salazzle initially. I don't have to farm up to the Dragon Pulse this time because Poison Fang's still going to do a lot of damage in this matchup. So, the opponent uses their shield. We come in with the Scraggy, and I'm definitely going to respect the damage here. The opponent does full send the superpower before swapping into a Primeape. Now, the opponent will have to full send a close combat to get the KO. So, I'm going to no shield this, but the opponent does full send it there. They debuff the defense, however, but still not really ideal. You can see Salazzle is already incredibly incredibly low. We're going to come in with a Salazzle. They will outpace me to this next charge move, so I'm definitely going to shield this up here, and I won't be able to go for the full Incinerate farm down, or actually, I probably would have been able to do so, but either way, that Dragonite would have been very problematic for me, so instead I snipe with the Scrafty, and the opponent does not respect the damage from the upper hand, maybe just forgetting that Scrafty gained access to upper hand, and at this point the opponent committing to the farm down, maybe expecting they're going to win CMP in the matchup up against Salazzle, but that is not the case. Salazzle, such an attack-weighted Pokemon there, easily winning CMP. Poison Fang takes out the Dragonite, and I'm able to take that game. Also, that opponent clearly just does not believe Fairy types exist, because that team is incredibly weak to Fairy types. Into next battle, GG's to that opponent, by the way. We're going to see a Primeape in the lead, so the opponent is going to fire off the charge move straight away. Since it is a Shadow, I will actually respect the damage here. I'm now going to go for one Incinerate, fire off the Poison Fang, and Poison Fang should be grabbing a shield back from the opponent. It does exactly that. They then swap into Guzzlord. I tried to swap out there, it nearly doesn't go through, but I eventually come in with the Scrafty, and this is fine with me. The opponent is going to fire for charge move, and they're just going to go for a Dragon Claw there. So I'm going to go for one counter, fire off the upper hand before they do reach another charge attack, and upper hand will be getting the KO. The opponent's going to come in with a Galarian Corsola, and this game should be well and truly over here. I'm going to go straight for Foul Play. Foul Play might be shielded. It might actually just be no shielded by the opponent, and that's definitely fine with me. The opponent does have to fire off a charge move to take out the Scrafty. Otherwise, you can see I did just gain the energy for the Foul Play. We can come in with the Scraggy. I don't have to shield anything. I'm going to save my shield for when the opponent does eventually swap back into the Primeape and try and go for a snipe here, and they do it there, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to shield this up here. If they let this move go through, then that's fine. If they don't, I will just swap back into Salazzle. They're not going to reach another charge move anyways, so upper hand grabs the final shield. We can Incinerate, farm them down, come out with the Dragon Pulse loaded, and of course, Dragon Pulse, fairly decent move here on Salazzle. It gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on that. Into next battle, see Salazzle into a Thievul. So, of course, Thievul going to be great for our backline. However, they do have access to Play Rough, and Play Rough absolutely going to one-shot both the Scraggy and the Scrafty as it hits for double super effective damage. The opponent banks a lot of energy before swapping into the Grumpig, and honestly, I can't remember how many Sucker Punches they threw before they swapped out, so that might be problematic for me in the end game, but I can overfarm with the Scraggy, go for Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch grabs the shield there as I throw just before they do reach a Dynamic Punch. So at this point, I'm actually going to let the Scraggy go down. What I cannot afford to do is beat all shields down with a Thievul that obviously has access to Play Rough. So they come back in with a Thievul, and I'm definitely going to have to shield here. The opponent definitely farmed up to the Play Rough, and they full send it, but I can't remember how much they overfarmed by, so I panic there, I swap out, and I don't know if the opponent might have just banked the charge move there. If they have done so, I think I'll just lose this game here, but the opponent fires off the Arquitel. We can come back in with the Scrafty. Of course, going to go for the upper hand. We've got two charge moves already loaded, but I don't think we're going to win CMP up against the Thievul, so it really just depends if they have that Play Rough already loaded. They are very low, so I think one counter will get the farm down. It's going to be close, but now it's time to find out, do they have the move? No, it's just an Ice Slash. Scrafty obviously double resisting it, able to hang on. Counter gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. But I was definitely panicking there. GG's to the opponent, by the way. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Abomasnow. They say swap into Carbink, and honestly, that's not too bad for my Scrafty here because I am resisting the fast move damage. I go straight for upper hand. No defense drop there, which is unfortunate, but they actually don't even farm up to a Moonblast, so they go for a Power Gem there. Absolutely fine with me. Gonna no shield. That is resisted damage. We can now fire off another upper hand here, and if they do throw another Power Gem, at this point I probably will end up shielding just because I realize Scrafty going to be pretty good up against the Abomasnow as well, so I might as well preserve the health here. They come back in with the Abomasnow. They're actually on Leafage, which is very interesting. Incinerate does so much damage there. That is honestly insane. Of course, one more Incinerate gets the full farm down. They're going to come back in with the Carbink, but if I go for Poison Fang and they shield this, I can now actually just go for an Incinerate farm down. We get the farm down. We come out with the Poison Fang loaded, and they've got Arctibax in the back. So honestly, very strange team composition there on the opponent's end. But either way, it doesn't really matter. That's going to be game over. We can come in with the Scrafty, go straight for the upper hand, grab the final shield from the opponent, swap into my XL Scraggy, and the opponent is just going to concede the match. So, GG's up on there into next battle, Salazzle into a Shadow Dust Noir. So I'm going to swap into Scraggy once again, and the opponent comes in with their Primeape. So once again, I need to bait this out here, otherwise, of course, Primeape going to be very problematic for the back line. The opponent is going to farm up a ton of energy, but they need to full send the close combat. If they bait with a Rage Fist, I'm going to probably reach another charge move, so the opponent does throw another move straight away. Absolutely fine with me. Now we can come in with a Salazzle. They don't even reach a third move, so the double boost there doesn't really help them out at all, but they come in with a Sand Attack Shadow Hippowdon, so I have to get the heck out of there. We come in with the Scrafty, and I need to call a bait. The opponent does bait, they go for a Weather Ball, and that's absolutely fine with me. Of course, Dust Noir has access to Dynamic Punch, so I'm definitely saving the shields, but the opponent is also saving their shields for their Hippowdon for some reason. That's absolutely fine with me. I can shield up the bait. They don't even reach a Dynamic Punch or even a Shadow Punch for some chip damage. And now this game should be okay for me. I'm going to go for the upper hand, fishing for a debuff. We don't get the debuff, but at this point, that's okay. I'm just going to shield anyways. I'm not sure I put them quite into one Incinerate farm down range, but they're definitely in that range right now. So at this point, of course, they go for a Weather Ball. Actually does not get the KO. I swap into Salazzle. We get the Incinerate snipe, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, once again leading into Tinkaton, and the opponent's going to say swap into a Linoon. So at this point, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the same team that I saw already, but not with a Furret, instead with a Linoon, so I'm expecting it to be a Jellicent in the back. So at this point, this should be game over already. I don't think there's a lot that the opponent can do, and especially now that I'm giving the Tinkaton very little farm here. So at this point, we are going to wait to see what they come in with. If it is the Jellicent, of course, I would go for the foul play, but they come back in with the Tinkaton. We go straight for upper hand there. Upper hand drops their defense, which is very nice. We can go for upper hand number 2, and they're only getting out 3 Fairy Winds before farming me down, but it's actually Thievul in the back. So basically, just swapping out the Jellicent for the Linoon instead, and actually Thievul with 2 shields here is going to be quite problematic, especially since they get the boost there. Honestly, if I shielded that and they did go for a Night Slash, but they didn't get the boost, I'd be quite happy to let the Scraggy go down, save my 1 shield for Salazzle, but since they're boosted, honestly, I don't think Salazzle can tank a Night Slash, plus a few more Sucker Punches, and as a result, the opponent double baits. They're then able to reach a charge move, and this will now finally be the Play Rough. Play Rough gets the KO. We come in with the Salazzle here. I can't really overfarm by much, so I'm going to go for the Poison Fang after just 1 Incinerate. We get the KO there, but we're not able to Incinerate farm them down, and despite the fact that I just triple hard countered the opponent, they're able to take me out with a Bulldoze, and I do end up losing that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.